And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is going to be so exciting, so exciting. Let me start by apologizing first because I had misspelled the word triumph in all of my communications. And when somebody told me, so apologies for that mistake. But today is going to be so awesome. This is a part of the Entrepreneur SOS series that WorkAbility, the community-focused co-working space, has sponsored, and my company, AZA Consulting, has sponsored. And we have an incredible rock star who is here with us, and I can't wait to talk to her. A little bit of a housekeeping. If you have questions, please click the Ask a Question button and put your question in that field, and we'll answer them throughout the conversation. I'm Arezou Zarafshan, founder, CEO of AZA Consulting, and I am working with WorkAbility to help them moderate or create these Entrepreneur SOS series as tools and material to help the founders navigate the journey through this COVID and now with the whole racial divide, etc. And my guest is Heidi Ganahl. So I'll introduce her in a second, but I have to say I am giddy. I am absolutely giddy to be talking to her. You will not believe what an incredible opportunity it is that we have this woman with us. And thank you for being here, Heidi. So let me tell you a little bit about Heidi. And she's just an amazing human being and extremely modest. But I will do my best, which I know I will fall short, to introduce her. What an amazing human being she is. Heidi Ganahl is an entrepreneur, CEO, political activist. She's on CU Regents, Board of Regents. She's a mom, she's a mentor, she's a friend. She is the quintessential example of grit and determination. And she's agreed to be with us today. Heidi is the founder of Camp Bow Wow and Inc. 5000 Company. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I believe it's the very first dog daycare franchise in the US. Am I correct? Or in the world. Yeah, so Camp Bow Wow has over 125 locations in the US and Canada. Heidi started that business in 2000 and exited very successfully 2016. Am I correct, Heidi?
2014.
Okay, 2014. Yeah. And by the time she exited the business, it was valued at $100 million as a $100 million brand. She's now on to her new venture, SheFactor, which many people, including myself, believe that it would be the next billion-dollar lifestyle brand for young women. Amongst Heidi's many, and I do mean many, just go Google her, awards and accolades are Colorado top 25 most powerful women in business, Fortune most promising women entrepreneurs, Colorado Brave Leader Award, and one of the top 9 female entrepreneurs in the US to watch, according to CNBC. And on that list is Sarah Blakely and Shonda Rhimes. And I think, Heidi, you're number 2 on that list, and number 1 is Sarah Blakely, the founder of I honestly feel so fortunate to have worked with Heidi as she launched her new company, SheFactor. Heidi's story is one that I feel every entrepreneur, man, woman, has to hear and learn from and internalize. I'm going to read a little bit from her book. By the way, she's also an author. From her book, SheFactor. So there it is. The ups and downs didn't really stop. In fact, they became bigger and more powerful, or more painful. There were several earthquake moments in early childhood that shook me to my core and threatened to take everything from me. The kind, big-hearted, good-looking guy I married a couple of years out of college was taken from me in a plane crash. The daughter I didn't plan for, but loved and protected with all my heart, was at risk for several years while I endured a long, expensive custody battle that exposed me to the corruption in the family court system. The multi-million-dollar business that I built from the dreams my late husband and I had was almost lost to the market crash of 2008. And yet she's here. And so, Heidi, welcome. Nice to have you here.
I'm so honored to be here, and I just think so highly of you. You've done amazing things, Arezou, and you're such a help to so many entrepreneurs in this community. And we all are very grateful for the role you play. You always got a smile on your face. You're a happy warrior, and boy, do we need that now more than ever.
We do need that. We do need that. So, Heidi, tell me and the audience about your upbringing and what was that like?
Oh, sure. Well, I had a traditional upbringing with, we didn't have a lot of money or resources. My parents got married very young, but very loved and had a big group of amazing family members to support me and encourage me along the way. Lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, lots of really powerful women too along that journey. And was built to believe I could do whatever I wanted to when I grew up. It really was the epitome of the American dream. My journey has been. And had a pretty all-around normal life until I lost my husband in the plane crash and things got, completely flipped. And really had to learn some tough lessons there about, taking life one day at a time and living life to the fullest and not assuming that we have another day to live. And that changed my outlook and my perceptions around how to build a business and how to build relationships, and really just being grateful for every opportunity we have to go out and do things that we love and be around people that we love. So my journey's been a lot of ups and downs in the business side and the personal side, and happy to delve in where you want to.
Yeah, so let's talk about, Camp Bow Wow. Just what was the inception? I mean, because that was pretty revolutionary in 2000, right? There was no dog daycare business.
There were a couple. It had just popped up on the scene, like in San Francisco and Chicago and New York, the big cities where people had dogs in small spaces, and they started to think about, could we, get our dogs together and have little social hours? Well, the veterinarians thought we were all nuts for even thinking of the idea. I remember calling on the vets when I first opened the very first Camp Bow Wow in Denver in late 2000, and they said, "Oh my gosh, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt the other employees. Nobody knows what to expect when you put 30, 40 dogs in a room." There were a couple other places in Denver that were trying it out. And I also made a really big connection with Colorado State University and the behavioralists up there. And we created a manual and looked at like signs of when dogs are distressed and how you manage that. But at the end of the day, dogs are pack animals and they love being social and they love to play. It's funny though, you walk into a Camp Bow Wow play yard and literally there are dogs. They're separated out by size and temperament mostly, but it's just like a kid's daycare where it's like, that one doesn't like that one has that buddy. These guys are ganging up on these. It's hilarious, but it's a lot of fun. And, what a blessing to be able to build a business around our furry friends. They're so amazing. They teach us wonderful lessons, mostly about unconditional love, but I miss the dogs tremendously, other than my big white lab who's around here somewhere.
What gave you the idea to start a dog daycare business? I mean, why dog daycare business?
I mean, I was always very entrepreneurial, and I was the kid doing the lemonade stand and thinking up crazy business ideas, as was my first husband. And we had two big furry mutts that we loved, rescue dogs, but we traveled a lot. We went up to the mountains a lot, and we kept abusing our family to the point they were like, "You got to figure something else out." So we started looking at places. They were terrible. They were the old chain link runs outside that, today we'd be like, "Oh, how could you ever leave your dog in a place like that?" But that's all that was there back then. And about that time, funny enough, right next to my dad's business opened up one of the first doggy daycares in the Western United States. And it was just this big warehouse where the dogs would mill around. And I kept asking Debbie, the founder, "Can I copy this? Can I franchise? What can I do? This is my dream business." And she said, no, I'm happy with just one, but you go out and do your thing. So Brian and I wrote the business plan over a couple beers at a restaurant on the back of a napkin, like so many entrepreneurs. And we didn't have the money to start it. I don't know what we were thinking. And we started talking to landlords, and they thought we were nuts to think of having 100 dogs within their facility. And so we kind of, puttered along. Brian was finishing up school, and I was doing my pharmaceutical sales job. And he died pretty tragically in a plane crash around his 25th birthday. And of course, life turned on its head and changed. And I put the business plan aside and managed to mess a lot of things up in my life. And 6 years later is when my brother talked me into pulling out that old business plan and getting things started.
And so when you started it, was it what you expected?
It was a crazy ride. I started it with my little brother, and Patrick would run the day-to-day while I worked my pharmaceutical sales job. And then in the evenings, I would take my little girl, Tori, at the time, who was 4 or 5, to Wash Park and Platt Park and hand out free milk bones with coupons to come try at Camp Bow Wow. And it just took off. People started coming. The veterinarians started getting a little less skeptical and referring people over to us. And we were in an old Veterans of Foreign War hall right across from Herman's Hideaway, just south of Broadway and I-25. And the place would not meet current standards for a Camp Bow Wow by any means. But it was so fun and such a beautiful environment for the dogs. They had a blast. And we had one of those little cheap pools out in the backyard that we would let them play in. And they just had a really good time. And word started to spread and the business started to grow. Not enough to the point where I could quit my job yet, but I kept hanging in there. We opened a second location, and that's when I was able to transition. And Patrick watched the first one, I watched the second one, and then we started franchising a couple years later.
So was it serendipity or was it the business plan, Heidi?
It was a little bit of magic, a little bit of being tenacious and hard-headed and stubborn, thinking there's no way this won't work, and just a little bit of grit. I think grit was the theme throughout the whole story of Camp Bow Wow. People telling me there's no way it's going to work. Why are you wasting your money on this? Why do you think this will, ever work to have dogs play in the yard together? Hearing it from the veterinarians, but just having that vision and believing in my heart that it was the right business for me and for our family and for the dogs, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so in your book, you talk about 2008, and I'm trying to draw parallels with what is going on now. So 2008 wasn't nearly as bad as what's happened in the past few months, but we had a pretty awful economic recession, mm-hmm. and your business almost tanked.
Yep.
So tell me about what happened, like what went on for you, and how did you hang in there?
Well, I remember the call in January of 2008 from one of our big lenders, Comerica, saying, or actually it was from some franchisees reaching out saying, our loans just got pulled to start our businesses. And I thought, what do you mean they got pulled? Well, it turns out Comerica decided to back off of franchise financing in certain segments. And we had 30 or 40 franchises at that point that weren't open yet. And all had received pre-approvals for financing and paid their franchise fees. And it was huge. It was a shock. And we're like, why are you doing this to the bank? And they said, something's happening in the consumer market. We're not comfortable anymore with how the economy's looking. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Everything's going fantastic. And bam, everybody got hit later that fall. So we had to really take a step back. Franchise sales dried up because nobody could get financing. People were terrified about what was going to happen with the economy. But luckily, people kept spending money on their puppies and wanting to come and be a part of our business. So we had to really turn around and focus on our unit economics and make sure our franchises that were already open were doing really well. And then help the folks that weren't open try and look at other options for franchising or how to resell their territory or how to just gut it out until, financing freed up. It was a very scary time, and we didn't know, kind of like now, you don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now, a year from now. You plan for the worst and hope for the best, and just really focus on the things you can control and try not to worry so much about the things that you can't.
And so that pulled you through.
Yeah, and just having great people around me, great mentors. I was part of Vistage for 5 years. And I had this great group of fellow CEOs. I was the only girl for a while. There were 11 guys besides me, but they were like brothers to me, and they had some tough love with me throughout that time. Like, you've got to let this many people go, or you've got to make this really tough decision about your business before things get too bad. And thank God I had them. They helped me through some really tough things that we had to do in the business. And I truly think that's part of how we survived. But also having great franchisees who were troopers that really wanted to make it work, and we all banded together and supported each other. It's one of the beauties of franchising. And then just really believing in the vision and knowing that it was the right thing to do, to stick it out and make it work.
So this is really awesome, Heidi, because I mean, throughout this conversation, we've just been at it for 15 months, but that belief, that uncanny, unshaken belief that this is the right thing and you're going to come hell or high water, you're going to make it work. That seems like a common theme, throughout your journey.
It is. And I think it's a common theme for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially right now. If you've got a good idea and you're solving problems for people, which is really what entrepreneurship is all about, hang tight, you guys. We're going to get through this. We're going to have to innovate and do business differently. But who's to say we aren't going to come out of this with a better solution, a better product or service, because of the terrible time we're going through right now, and having to pivot and having to reduce our budgets and watching revenue go, completely out the window. So this is teaching us to be tough and agile and flexible and smart, and really focus on your customer and what they need right now. One of the best pieces of advice I heard recently was, you should be asking your customer and your employees two things: how are you and how can I help you? And those two things will open up conversations that will help you navigate how to get through this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of founders that I talk to, the big scary thing is not knowing, right? Not knowing, is this temporary? Is it permanent? I mean, when you think about it, like, ride sharing companies, Uber, Lyft, right? Their revenue tanked by about 90%.
Yeah.
So, if I were and they laid off, I don't know, 77,000 people. I mean, a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's that not knowing in terms of, do I have a business or do I not have a business? Is this getting rid of the need for my business, or do, what do I do to make sure my business survive this? That's kind of the big thought that goes on in entrepreneurs' heads right now.
It's very scary. I mean, there's no easy answers. You have to take a tough look at how much you're willing to risk, how much capital of your own money, of other people's money. And you have to see if there are other ways you can navigate, getting your product or service into the right hands, or into the consumer's hands. If it's an Uber, how can we do different business, do a different line of business, or how can we leverage our customer base to offer them a different kind of value or product or service? I know with SheFactor, which, you were part of our launch, as you helped us do this, and we had a very strong focus on live events, whether it was launching our live chapters. We did a 30-city tour last summer. We had just rolled out a 4 live event series for the rest of the year, and we had to completely pivot with a 5-member team to go virtual within a week or two. And it was dramatic, it was intense, it was really hard, but we're figuring it out, and we're going to be a better business on the other end because of it, I think. And that's how I think you just have to have that warrior mindset. Like, we're going to get through this, we're going to figure this out. And all the things we read about leadership and tenacity and getting through tough times, it's all happening right now. And this will show which brands are doing the right things and which leaders are doing the right things at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to get into SheFactor in a second, but we have a whole lot of comments here that I want to. Hi, Lori. Lori Fisher is writing, hello, looking forward to learning more about Heidi and her road to success. Michelle Salinas, hey, Michelle from Denver. Hi, Kathy. Kathy McCarty is my friend, and she's amazing. Carol Eddy. Hi, Carol. Nice to see you here. Anthony, nice to see you. It's great to see all of you here. So let's talk about SheFactor. So no, let's first close up Camp Bow Wow and then talk about SheFactor. So you weathered the storm of the 2000 recession, and in 2014 you you sold the business. So how was that? How was that? Talk to us about that.
Lots of ups and downs, very emotional because Camp Bow Wow was my baby. But I also knew my personal life had changed a lot. I had remarried and I had a 3-year-old and twins when I sold the company. That twins were under a year old when I started the process, and a teenager. So my personal life was, a priority at that point. And I knew Camp Bow Wow was on a really strong trajectory to grow. And I also knew I needed a lot more capital to grow it to where it needed to be. So we started looking at strategic partnerships. And one of them was with VCA, which is the country's largest pet care or veterinary chain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just really hit it off with the founders, 2 brothers and a best friend from New York, and clicked. And we had a very aligned vision for what it could look like to grow together. And they called us their happy brand, which was really nice. And so we went through the process and ended up closing the deal in August of 2014. I ended up deciding to go ahead and sell to them. I stayed on board for a couple of years afterwards as CEO to help the transition. And now they're doing great. I think they have over 160 units open, and just really proud of how they've kept the brand growing and evolving, especially in such a tough time. And Julie Turner, who I had the pleasure of hiring when I was running Camp Bow Wow as my marketing head, is now the president and doing a great job. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So from that back of the napkin, business model over a couple of years to being acquired by the largest veterinary care organization in the U.S. Did you have a moment that you thought, I made it?
Oh my gosh. There's making it in different ways. One is the relief of having the deal done, because it's so intense to go through a sale. There's so much due diligence and ups and downs and craziness around that. The other one is, obviously the financial rewards. I tell people one of the most fun parts of it was waking up the day, the money goes in the bank. You wake up in the morning, you look at your bank balance, like, oh, that's so cool. And then one of the most deflating moments is about 6-9 months later when you pay the tax. You're like, if the government was doing great things with it, I might feel better about that, but it's fine. It all worked out. And I was very blessed to be able to take some of the proceeds and start Fight Back Foundation and do some good things with it. And now invest in starting this movement for young women. So it's been a crazy ride. And then in the middle of all that, running for office, for statewide office, which I'd never done before.
So all of a sudden you okay, I exited the business. Now I got to run for the state office, and I got to start a foundation, and you've got 4 kids.
Yes, yeah. I have a very full life. I'm very blessed. I love every minute. Every minute's an adventure. And, after I sold the company, I was going to just chill and stay home for a while and hang out with my kiddos. And, that's just not how I'm wired. And I understood that pretty quickly. And I felt so blessed that I wanted to give back and make a difference. And the way I figured I could make a difference was through starting the foundation and working on kids issues, helping other entrepreneurs work on kids issues in Colorado, which is what the Fight Back Foundation does. But also by running for office as a regent at the University of Colorado, because I truly believe education is the key to keeping the American dream alive. And I wanted to be a part of that, and a part of my alma mater that I love. I'm a huge buff, and it was part of the reason I was able to be successful.
And so what is the American dream, Heidi?
The American dream is about opportunity and, living to your fullest potential, and, being able to visualize a dream or an adventure and go after it and not be held back by a lot of the things that, unfortunately, women and men are held back around the world by. And, I'm a free market warrior. I believe in free enterprise. And I just think there's nothing more fulfilling than creating jobs and giving people a fulfilling way to work and be successful and build their own empires too.
And so you believe that it still exists?
Oh, yes, I do. I've had my heart filled with joy, like talking to entrepreneurs throughout this whole thing and how passionate they are about their businesses, and they're hanging tough and they're so invested in seeing their dream through, even with all the difficulties. And, you know, being able to preserve people's jobs is incredibly important. And I've been working really hard in my role as the chair of the board of Job Creators Network, which is Bernie Marcus's foundation, the founder of Home Depot. And we've been driving nationally and at the state level to get these PPP loans done and to support the SBA and their efforts around keeping people employed and helping entrepreneurs keep their employees on staff, because I think that's so important right now for people's mental health and emotional and financial health too.
Okay, so now let's talk about SheFactor, my favorite. What is SheFactor, and how did you decide to start SheFactor?
Well, SheFactor came out of more of a logistical situation with my own daughter when she graduated from University of Oregon back in 2017. She came home over spring break of her senior year, and Tori's a dynamo, you know Tori, and she's just a leader in everything she does. And she came home and had this deer in the headlights look over spring break of her senior year, about to graduate, like, I don't know what to do with my life. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Go get a job. It's okay. But I had also recognized that in a lot of the young people I was working with at CU and young entrepreneurs that, you know, too much opportunity can be paralyzing a bit. And, you know, I don't think it's ever been as good to be a woman in the history of man, but yet there are still tremendous challenges and, you know, things that we're facing in society, you know, the civil rights issues we're talking about today that need to be addressed. And so the best way I figured I could help with my own daughter's journey, but with other young people's journey, was to give them tools and tactics and resources to prevent them from making a lot of the same mistakes we all did when we were young, but also just a toolkit to find your passion, go after it unapologetically, and, you know, live the life that you are authentically meant to live. And oh my gosh, that's the cutest kitty cat.
I know, she just helped herself on my lap. She's old too. She's she's a big little kitty.
What's her name?
Sophie.
Hi, Sophie. we got asked throughout the years if we were going to start Camp Meow Meow, and I laughed. I'd say,
"Oh, that's cool."
I don't know. Cats like hanging out together like that, though.
They don't. Cats are cats. Okay, so you were talking about the SheFactor.
Sorry, I got kitty cat distracted. So anyway, at the same time, I was asked to write a book about my journey being a woman entrepreneur. And I thought, you know, instead of writing the traditional business book about my journey, building a business and exiting, I want to write a letter to my 20-year-old self, or a book for my 20-year-old self about what I would do differently, how I would have lived life differently, and give some real pieces, you know, authentic pieces of advice for young women about how to navigate the world today. So I started working on the book, and you know me, Arezou, I don't do anything small. So I had to do an app to go with the book, and then a podcast and a blog. And then we started live chapters, and it just, you know, ballooned from there. So now I describe it as a live and digital community of women who are committed to growth, community, and purpose. And we're really targeted on 20-somethings and helping them launch their lives.
Yeah. So now you've done it. You've, you know, started a business, grew it, exited it, and now you're doing the same with SheFactor. Are there similarities between what you experience with Camp Bow Wow and what you're experiencing with SheFactor?
Oh, yes. Lots of people telling me early on, this space is too crowded. We don't need anything like this. You know, you should open up to, you know, all ages, not just stay focused on 20-somethings. I mean, the stories, the things people come up with to put as roadblocks in your vision are tremendous. And I've been reminded of that. Also, cash is king. I mean, oh my gosh, you know, it's just as nerve-wracking starting a startup or launching a startup, you know, when you're using your own resources and hard fought off money that you built Camp Bow Wow with all these years. Now you're putting at risk again into another idea to see if you can make it work. So lots of sleepless nights there. And then just wanting so badly to create a company that has tremendous culture and honors the struggles that women are facing today, while yet not buying into this. We have to be a victim, and we have control of our own destiny. So weighing that and balancing that is a thin line that we walk every day.
Mm-hmm. And so when I worked with you on SheFactor, there was you, me, and a couple other women. Maybe there was just one, Abby.
Yeah.
No, and then there was another one. Yeah.
Amy.
And now you are, yes, and Amy. And so now you are a 5-person team.
Yeah, it hasn't changed much. We're just more maxed out.
Time, I mean, I was a consultant, and then Amy and Abby also were kind of part-time on SheFactor. So but now it seems like sorry, Sophie now it seems like it's a legit 5-person team, and you guys just had an incredible event for graduation.
We did. When all this happened, one of the first things I heard from were my constituents as a regent at the University of Colorado, how disappointed all the seniors were that they weren't going to have a graduation ceremony and they weren't able to have graduation parties. And our live event series had just gotten scrapped. So our team got together and decided that we were going to host a really cool virtual graduation party for young women all over the country. So we worked our tails off for about 6 weeks. It was so much work, but a labor of love. And we got Bethany Hamilton, the surfer, Caitlin Bristow from The Bachelorette, who was part of our launch, and Colby Kaye, the singer, and
Missy Franklin. Yes.
Amazing women. Karen Civil, who's this tremendous agent in the hip hop industry, and Jennifer, one of the first Latina full-size models in the world. So just a tremendous group of women to speak and perform, and we pulled it off. It was a 3-hour event with a 6-hour summit beforehand, with some tremendous sponsors and support, and had over 12,000 young women join us for the party. So It was a lot of fun. We're still pretty tired from the whole thing, trying to figure out, okay, now what do we do next for an encore? And we're going to host what we call our She Cares Summit in September, which will be a virtual summit for women around mental health and well-being, especially important right now.
So Heidi, I'm looking at you and we're talking and knowing you a little bit. You just never run out of energy, right?
I do.
And so how do you do it? Like, there's got to be down days, right? You've got to have some days where you're like, I don't want to get out of bed.
Well, don't let me get away with that. I have 8-year-old twins and a 10-year-old at home. Tori lives in Portland, so she's a bit easier. But, like I tell everybody, every day is an adventure, and my heart is full, my plate is full, but I'm working on all these things that I absolutely love to be involved with, and I'm very passionate about. One of my coaches a few years ago said, as I sold the company, kind of transitioned into a new world, maybe you should just think about working with cool people on cool projects and don't put so much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out. And I took that approach. And when people look at my life, they get a little overwhelmed, like, you're working on so many things. But in my mind, it's this beautiful puzzle that's put together and ties back to caring so much about children and their future, and our country and its future, and our state and its future. So those 3 things are how it kind of all ties together.
So how can the founders or the audience that are watching us, what can they learn? How can they do this?
Well, I think that it depends on what you're working on and the lessons that you need to learn. We each have our own lessons. For me, one of the big lessons was following my gut and trusting myself and learning to have confidence in what I perceived were the right solutions to the problems, instead of relying on outside folks. I mean, it's always important to surround yourself with a great team of people and mentors, but at the end of the day, follow your gut and stay true to your vision. The other thing I would say is have grace right now. I was on the Dames event last night talking about how discipline was my word for 2020. I was going to, work out more consistently and take better care of myself, spend more focused time with my kids and focus on my business, etc. And my word is transition to a new word, and that's grace. Because right now, nothing's going as planned for any of us. And we have to just be forgiving and understanding and support each other, cry when we need to, laugh when we need to, and get mad when we need to too. It really is the 5 stages of grief right now that we're all living through.
Yeah. And so you mentioned, so speaking of that, you guys pivoted the business for SheFactor in a couple of weeks, right? And so talk to us about that process. How did you determine that that's necessary?
Oh, nerve-wracking. I mean, we had literally just finished all the production on the materials for the live events. We were going to host a conference in Nashville for 400 women in the fall. We were going to have a retreat up in the mountains for 50 new graduates, 2 different day-long seminars, and just, wow, had to completely reimagine how we were going to build this community and connect with all these young ladies around the country. And so first thing we had to do was figure out the technology side. How were we going to shift to our squad meetings every month, and what platform were we going to use, and how much was it going to cost, and how were we going to communicate to people effectively throughout this situation. And then we had to get everybody aligned about what our goals were over the next 6 months. And we could only create those for 3 to 6 months because we still don't know what's going to happen. And keeping really laser focused, and then taking emotional care for all of us because we were all pretty, shaken up about what's going on. So managing all of those things in a short time frame to come up with an idea that we could all get our heads around and really was part of giving back, because this wasn't a moneymaker. The graduation party, it was about.
No, I can't imagine it. Yeah.
So all of those things aligned, and we just stayed very focused. And my job as a leader was to help them get to a vision for how we wanted to spend our time for the next few months, and how we could honor what our mission was at SheFactor, and then how we could survive financially and get through this. And I could keep my team together and staff on board and the consultants that we worked with engaged.
Wow. I mean, you make it sound so easy.
Oh my goodness. I'm exhausted. Yeah, you talk about energy. It's been a really tough time, not to mention homeschooling our kids, which is beautiful in some ways, but what a hot mess on some days.
No kidding. Yes, that's something that I dealt with. Like, I say, that was a career I never picked. I never chose to be, there was a reason I didn't want to be a teacher.
It's hard. Teacher, God love you. It's the hardest.
Yes. Oh, yes. So what's next for you, Heidi?
Well, it's continuing to build SheFactor and knock that out of the park, hopefully in the next couple of years, and hopefully bring my young leaders up so that, they can do the day-to-day operational stuff and focus on the Fight Back Foundation. We rescheduled our event for this fall. We have a really cool application process. If any of the listeners are entrepreneurs that have good ideas that'll help kids in Colorado, go to fightback.foundation to apply. And then we narrow that down to about 10 to 12 teams that we put through a weekend boot camp and incubator, and then have a Shark Tank competition where we give away grants and mentorship. So that's going to happen this fall. And then focusing on my job as a regent at the University of Colorado and making sure that we can adapt and be flexible and nimble to keep our students happy and successful and keep CU going strong.
What can you talk about Fight Back Foundation for some of our audience that don't know what that is?
So Fight Back Foundation is an incubator for social entrepreneurs. So it's a way that I can use all my connections and resources and networks to help people that have really good ideas, specifically to help kids in Colorado. So it's around issues like teen suicide and drug abuse and, sexual assault, teen sexual assault, school safety. We have a family court reform effort through Moms Fight Back. So my job is to find wonderful entrepreneurs with great ideas to help kids in Colorado and lift them up with resources and mentorship. And it's been a wonderful journey. We have some great, we call them Fight Back Fellows who've gone through the program. One of my favorites is Hope 40, who runs Foster Together. And she created this incredible organization that helps foster families so that they can help the foster kids, and we can have more and more foster families in our state. So that's a good example of one of the projects that we support.
Wow. And you're keeping it going throughout this whole pandemic and everything.
I have a wonderful board of directors who's been very supportive, and Jessica Fiakovich, who's on my board, who's an incredible entrepreneur in this city. She's the incoming president of EO, which many of you are probably familiar with. And Jess and I are hosting every other Friday afternoon, the Fight Back Foundation Friday Afternoon Club. And we just bring on business leaders, kind of like what you're doing, Arezou, and offer up interviews, cocktails, whatever you need. Last week we had Dan Norberg, the regional director for the SBA, on, and that recording's on our Fight Back Foundation Facebook page now, just asking really tough questions about what's going on politically and legislatively and economically for startups around the state.
Mm-hmm. So Heidi, now that you are where you are and you're just incredible and amazing, what, like, if you look back, would you do anything differently?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, there's so many lessons along the way, but then, I wouldn't be where I am right now, and I wouldn't have had the journey and the lessons and the rough spots to teach me what I needed to learn. I still have so much to learn. I mean, I'm doing this whole startup thing all over again, and I'm a bit older, maybe a bit wiser, but maybe a bit naive on certain fronts like technology. It's a whole new adventure, and I'm learning all kinds of new lessons, but it's a fabulous way to spend your time and your life. And like I said, I think job creation is one of the most noble things someone can do. So I just shout out to all the entrepreneurs and business leaders out there. Keep doing what you're doing, because the way we're going to get through this and lift people back up is by giving them hope and opportunity and something valuable to do with their time and energy and talents to have a meaningful life.
So you didn't answer my question. Yeah, now I can tell that you're in politics. Beautifully. What would you do differently? Would you do anything differently?
I think I would, again, trust my gut more. I would not be so in a rush to have success, just kind of enjoy the journey more, not be so panicked about doing everything right and on schedule and along the timeline, either in my head or in the people around me's minds, and just do things with more love and attention and in a more calm, quieted way, because I'm like a bull in a china shop sometimes, and I get that there's a time and a place for that, but there's also a time and a place for just relaxing, enjoying life, taking a step back and kind of looking at things from a 30,000 view and seeing how you can make a better difference or do things in a more impactful way.
That is so true. And I think, if there's one good thing about COVID is, at least in my life, I can't speak for everyone, that, it is, to seize the moment and enjoy, the blessings that life gives us every single second, right? I mean, I was having a podcast interview with someone else, and he was like, you're hanging in there. I'm like, well, I'm safe at home and have a roof over my head, and I have, a couple different businesses that I'm running, and I'm passionate about both, and I'm not hungry, and I'm safe, and my kid is safe, and so life is good. Life is good. And I think so often, especially entrepreneurs, given that they are driven by so many external factors, right? There is if you have an investor, there's the investors, there are the customers, right? There's your bank account, there's societal pressure, right? We hear about all of these entrepreneurs and we think that they woke up and they became billionaires. And we don't realize what it took to get there. And so all of those pressures really give us reasons to forget about celebrating the moment. And we shouldn't. We should celebrate the moment.
That's beautifully said. And you're right. It's been this pause on just the busyness of life. I mean, we're busy in other ways, but just to hang out and be in your house and look around and find little projects and, contact friends. I mean, I've talked to my friends more on Zoom than I do live usually. Right. And that part's been beautiful and fun. the chaos of homeschooling and running a business and trying to keep our business alive, and the stress of not knowing if we're going to get sick or not, if our family is going to get sick or not, is horrible. But you're right. You have to find the beauty in what's happened, and letting us all heal maybe a little bit from the busyness and craziness of where we were in life. So
yeah. All right. Let's see. So people are giving us some comments. Kathy says, thank you for the reminder, Heidi. Focus, grace, timing, strategic partners, and even leading healing during the process. It will all happen. Michelle says, this really resonates. Thank you. Lori says, so authentic and genuine. So important. Thank you. So I have one last question, Heidi. And that is, if you were to have, if you were to advise our audience, our listeners, or viewers, I should say, walk away with one thing from all of this conversation, what would that one thing be?
I think you've really got to find your passion, because none of it works unless you are completely all in, passionate about what you're doing or the change you're trying to make, the product you're trying to create. Whatever it is, you've got to find your passion. And if you find it, success will be unlimited. If you aren't doing something that you're passionate about, you're always going to hit walls and obstacles, and it's the universe telling you, nope, this is not the right thing. This is not the right thing. And for goodness sake, when that's happening, don't see it as a failure, just see it as a course correction. It's just the universe nudging you into a different pattern and into a different course. That's all it is. No need to attach a lot of meaning to it. No need to think of it in a negative way. Think of it as a positive way, because it's getting you one step closer to finding your passion and doing the thing that you are meant to do.
That's awesome. I love that. And you do refer to that a lot in your book, SheFactor, about, passion. For those of you who have not read Heidi's book, SheFactor, do that, please, because it is just an incredible. I mean, it is written for the younger women that are launching their lives. But as someone who's not in her 20s, I still love reading through it, and it just gives me so much energy and so much validation that I'm doing it right. And it's like a great compass. So definitely read that. I can't thank you enough, Heidi, for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a great conversation. And I'm so honored to be here and spend time with you. You're one of my favorite people.
Oh, well, that definitely, that's made my day. But I think how highly I think of you. And I know WorkAbility was really, really excited when they heard that you've accepted to be on this interview. You're fantastic. So it was a great honor. And for people, there was one person that I think said he would love to connect with you. If people want to reach out and connect with you, what would be the best way?
Oh, sure. Well, probably my website is HeidiGanahl.com. You can message me through there, or you can go through Instagram. Just message me on my Instagram page. It's at Heidi Ganahl, or Twitter, or Facebook. I've got it all, and it's all at Heidi Ganahl. It's all the same. Or my email address is just HeidiGanahl@gmail.com. So keep it easy.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Heidi, for being here. And we will see all of you next week.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Bye.